Stay tuned for Truckers Life Radio, coming up next on tncradio.live.
You're listening to tncradio.live. Remember to tune in to the Truckers Network radio show with Shelley Johnson weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
Hey, y'all, this is Curtis Grimes, and I want to give a shout out and a special thank you to everyone associated with tncradio.live.
Hello and welcome to tncradio.live. This is Truckers Life Radio. And now here's your host, Ron Frazier.
Welcome to Truckers Life Radio on tncradio.live. We're excited today. We are a radio program that's dedicated to helping drivers on life's highway. And my guest today is Jon Slaughter. And Jon is the Chief Executive Officer of Healthy Trucking of America. And so we're going to be talking about drivers' health and a few other things. But before we do, I want you to be aware, as always, that if you have a question or you want to contact us in relationship to the program or other programs you've heard, you can reach us at Truckers Life at tncradio.live. That's Truckers Life at tncradio.live should you have any questions or even possibly a story of your own that you'd like to share with us. So as I mentioned before, my guest today is Jon Slaughter. And Jon, we're excited to have you on. And what I'm going to ask you to do is tell us who you are.
Sure. Well, thanks. Well, as you stated, I am the Chief Executive Officer of Healthy Trucking of America, but I'm also the chief trash taker outer. I'm also the chief guy that buys all the office supplies and picks them up. So that is about the value of being Chief Executive Officer.
Yeah,
but
I get that.
When you talk about Chief Executive Officer, Jon, that's what I do and not necessarily who I am. To give you a little bit of background, I'm 57 years old. I was born in 1964 in Montgomery, Alabama, where I was raised and still live. As you can imagine, I grew up during tumultuous times when it came to race relations, which heavily influenced my view on who my fellow man is and how we treat one another. And with that said, and my faith, it really shaped me considerably in my professional career. I've got two sisters, two brothers. I am next to the youngest, so I call myself the preferred baby brother. And was blessed to have a mother and father that insisted we attend every church service, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night Bible study. And I think I even hung out on some ladies' Bible classes whenever my mom was teaching them. I've got 3 adopted children and 3 grandchildren. My son is going into the Army. His twin sister's at school at Troy University. My oldest daughter works in the medical field. Her husband's a lieutenant colonel in the Marines. So I like to throw that out every once in a while, just because it's fun to talk about. But put it simply, I tell people I'm just a man navigating this earthly world with the help of God's grace.
Jon, you talked about you have 3 adopted children. That's really cool because my son has adopted his last 2. He has 5 and the last 2 are adopted. And we just love them to pieces. They're my grandchildren. But Jon, tell me, how did you transition? I mean, what did you do before being involved in Healthy Trucking of America?
Sure. I worked in the computer industry. I assisted different government agencies and so forth with setting up their computer networks, intranets, all of those kinds of slang. I was senior account executive and later regional manager for some of the biggest firms in America, and which meant I was just a sales guy. And so with that, I did that for about 30 years.
So, okay. you're in the corporate world. You're a senior account executive. You've been through all of this computer programming stuff that I have no clue about, and try not to get myself involved in. But how did you make that transition, Jon, from being that kind of executive, that kind of employee, to the trucking industry? That seems like a mighty big jump from where you were to what you're doing now.
Well, it really was. And a friend of mine here in Montgomery kept inviting me to lunch and would tell me about his project. And that was this Healthy Trucking Association of America. And he was like, Jon, how can we grow it? How can we provide better services to these drivers? How do we communicate with them? And so I would give him some free advice. It wasn't really free. He gave me a lunch, a meet and three. But, and then my curiosity began really growing because I started looking at numbers. And that is how many drivers are obese and how many drivers have hypertension, and the list goes on. And I realized, just like he did, that these are some people that really need some help who are kind of victims of their occupation. So with that said, the offer was given to me 2 years ago to come on board as the CEO and to kind of reshape us. And so that's what I did.
Wow. I like the term victims of their occupation. They don't intentionally make themselves sick.
No.
They just, by nature of what they do and the schedules that they have to maintain and the driving across country that keeps them away from home, 3 to 4 weeks a month, they just fall into a trap. And as we see it, we see this all the time. But so how did you begin to reshape the organization? How did you begin where were you looking to put your focus in light of the fact that you understood they were victims of their occupation and still are?
Yeah, it really got, so coming from the computer industry, I tend to be data specific. I like empirical data. And so when I was talking with our health coaches, we started putting together questionnaires or kind of an intake form when it came to drivers that we place into these different federal programs and philanthropic programs. And what we found is that there's the trend. We know, for instance, 62% of the professional driving community is morbidly obese, not clinically, morbidly. And as I tell people, once you become obese, you kind of open up the screen door to the back porch of all kinds of comorbidities, hypertension, and the list goes on. And so we've started really tracking and analyzing these drivers, taking a look at how they have progressed using our health coaches, and then really taking a look at a couple of other things. One of those is clinical depression. You mentioned they're gone 3 or 4 weeks out of a month. Well, I couldn't imagine being away from my family that much and trying to handle all my responsibilities as the leader of the family, right? Finances and fights at home with the kids and all of those kinds of things. So it causes depression, it causes stress, hypertension. And so it's just the little things that go on with this sedentary job, and I'll call a lonely job, that contribute towards all of these physical ailments.
Jon, did you find that surprising? Did you have any clue that those kind of numbers were existing when it came to the amount of being, as you called it, morbidly obese?
It was shocking, really. And, prior to me coming with Healthy Trucking, I really didn't pay attention to it. I was like anybody else. I'd pull in a truck stop, fill up my car, go in and get, a hot dog or something, but I really didn't pay attention to everybody around me. And then, when I came on board as CEO, COVID followed about 2 months later. And so we really got into the numbers. We worked with the CDC on different campaigns and programs that they have that are free, by the way, to drivers, to analyze this data. And we provide that data to them. We process about 1,500 drivers a week into federal programs. And so when we're gathering data, it is something that is really shocking to know. We're seeing the depression rates really growing. We're seeing more and more of that. And so it's really sad. And that's why it's so important to be supportive of these people and to give them some options.
You were talking about process 1,500 people a week. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Wow. That seems like an extremely large number. And I think, to be honest, John, that most of the community, and I don't mean the trucking community, they sense to have an idea of what's going on, or whether they like it or not, they're kind of caught in it. But the general community, the population as a whole, they don't have any clue whatsoever what's going on in the life of the driver that they go by, on a regular basis on our interstates all across the U.S. And, so part of what we try to do here is bring clarity to that. So we've got to go to break, but when we come back, I want to talk about the pandemic issue with you. So we'll just tell our listeners to stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. Here on the Gulf of Mexico, we sometimes have a condition called riptide. And riptide is a current, a very narrow band of water that has the power to suck you out to sea. And people are advised not to fight against the riptide and not certainly to flow with it. Either way, there's a good chance you'll drown. The advice is to swim out of the narrow band that is perpendicular to the shore. And that means either north or south, but do not go east or west for fear of being overpowered by the riptide. What does that have to do with the Mental Health Minute, you ask? The same thing is true about our negative thoughts sometimes. What we need to do is not fight them, not battle them, not succumb to them, but swim out of them. For instance, get up out of bed. We're not supposed to be in bed more than 10 or 15 minutes if we're not sleeping. Pick up a book. Turn on your favorite comedy. Call a friend. Go for a walk. Do something to change the channel in your head and swim out of the riptide. There's an excellent chance you'll feel much differently in a very short period of time. And you will never drown in your own negative thoughts.
Be sure to listen to Building Strong Minds with Dr. Chris, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, right here on tncradio.live. Ready for the power of positive and something that will put you back to a time you wanted to last forever? Music is the ultimate time machine. What was your favorite time? Do you want to go back there? LTD Radio features the songs of the 70s, 80s, and 90s that will transport you to a happier time. It'll make you smile and brighten your day. We could all use that about now. TNCRadio.live is proud to carry the great music of LTD Radio.
Hey, welcome back to Truckers Life Radio. We're here with Jon Slaughter, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Healthy Trucking of America. John, again, I want to pick up where we left off a little bit. I've got two questions I want to throw at you in this segment. The first one deals with the understanding that, you and I and anybody in this industry is aware that truck stops are changing. And the trucking industry is struggling to put drivers on the road. And you mentioned a few minutes ago in our first segment about coming on board. You'd come on board and 2 months later, the pandemic hit. Share with us a little bit about the pandemic and how it had an impact on your efforts. Obviously, it changed the way we all are doing ministry, but how did it impact your organization specifically?
Well, first of all, we had to become basically everybody had to work from home. So we ended up having to invest heavily into digital infrastructure and so forth to support our health coaches. We've got over 46 health coaches located around the country, and they all work from home. And so when you call our toll-free number about a particular issue, you may be routed to Idaho if you were in Alabama. So we had to make sure those connections worked, seamlessly, and that we were following HIPAA guidelines as we're communicating with these drivers. So it was a big lift.
Did you see an increase, in poor health activity with the pandemic? I know that many of our truck stops shut their restaurants down, and our drivers were really struggling to find a way to get something to eat. And obviously, you don't take a tractor trailer through McDonald's, the drive-through. So, and not that they should anyways, even if they could. But the reality here is, how did you see that impact the trucking industry or the people that you were dealing with?
Well, first of all, when the pandemic hit, I know everyone was just, walking around with a question mark on top of their head, like, what's next? And didn't really know where the future of this was going. I know fleets were consulting with us about how to better service their drivers, but also the community and protect the community. We were putting together different programs and writing different white papers for fleets when it came to that. HHS and CDC were coming to us to turn around and be able to get messaging out to drivers and so forth. What I primarily found is that, the COVID pandemic really targeted those who were unhealthy, period. And so with our drivers being obese and symptomatic to prediabetes, hypertension, they were really at risk. So when you take a look at the entire population of long-haul professional drivers, you were looking at over 60% of them were vulnerable, which meant the supply chain was going to be vulnerable. And when we were talking about spreading, going from one location to another, we just really had to take a look at how they were going to, that being fleets, were going to be able to assist their drivers and protect the American public as they're driving across country with 60% of their drivers being susceptible to COVID. So it was a really an alarm bell that went off here at Healthy Trucking.
Yeah, I know, John, that we talked in another interview, not you and I, but another interviewee and Tom and I, about the fact that some of our drivers, they were so dedicated to making sure supplies got through that they didn't go in their house. When they had time off, they came to their house, their wife left their clothes or lunch or, food for the next 3 weeks on the front porch. And they literally, touched hands on the window, kissed through the window, picked up the stuff, got back in their truck, and headed on the road. And this is what the general public has no clue about, the dedication and the service that these guys brought. But now you add to it the fact that, in what you just said, that COVID targeted the more unhealthy, and 60% of the trucking industry fell into that category. And now they're not only committed to what they're doing, they're putting their lives at risk. And, we want to elevate who our professional drivers are, because they're more than just the people driving down the road that people want to curse at. The reality here is these guys are really dedicated to what they do. But how does trucking, Healthy Trucking of America. What is it all about, and really, what is its vision and focus in relationship to these drivers? I know some of what you're doing, but tell us about Healthy Trucking of America.
Yeah, we live by a motto here that healthy drivers keep America moving. And it is our mission to go out and provide the professional drivers with a way to be able to connect with free health programs. We know 35% of our owner operators don't even have insurance. And so oftentimes, even the smallest thing, having to call in to get some medication for an infection or something, a lot of them are going to emergency rooms, spending $500 to get what you and I get on a $25 copay. And so we take and align federal programs with the HHS and CDC and target the use of those programs to support the driving community. We have pharmaceutical companies that we work with that do clinical trials that provide free healthcare basically for that particular illness, and allows them to be able to turn around and be able to get some treatment by participating in those trials. So we're lending every way we can to get the message out, and also to get drivers healthier, because honestly, if our drivers are unhealthy, if our drivers are unhealthy, our highways are unsafe. And so it's important to get the drivers healthy.
Jon, you probably, you weren't, my next question's involving a period of time, and obviously you haven't been at this all that long, but I'm sure you know the answer. What is the percentage of unhealthy drivers in our country today, let's say, compared to, maybe 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, I do have those numbers. So right now, the driving community, that 66% that I gave you is pretty much the number that we use for obesity, but it also reflects all comorbidities. So we're seeing that is the trend right now. 5 years ago, it was higher. The numbers were at 75%. So drivers are starting to pay more attention towards their health, and they're making huge changes in short amount of times, but we still need more.
What's giving them this awareness? I know when I gain 4 or 5 pounds or more, my pants feel tight.
Sure.
But I've gotten awareness that I need to do something about that. But yeah. I'm not in a truck. I'm not driving all the time. I'm not eating as I drive. So how do drivers become aware of their need to, hey, do something about this?
Well, honestly, you really hit the nail on the head. When you start feeling your pants are tight, or you get to where you can't see your feet, it's a good time to get on the phone with one of our health coaches and let's have a conversation. Because when you think about it, they know, for instance, there are drivers that call us up constantly and tell us that they're changing out the prescription eyeglasses twice a year and can't figure out why. Well, that's symptomatic to diabetic retinopathy or liver disease, or hypertension that's uncontrolled, or diabetes that's uncontrolled. Or if you find yourself with psoriasis and you can't figure out why you keep getting reoccurrence of psoriasis, again, that's symptomatic to liver disease. So it's good to turn around at that point, get a hold of our health coaches. We can reference you to any one of the health and wellness programs around the country to get you treatment. One of the other things is dry mouth. So as you get dry mouth, again, you can't quench the thirst. You can't seem to satisfy yourself. Again, that's symptomatic to prediabetes. So there are some basic things that you can keep up with. Neuropathy and so forth is symptomatic to a whole host of comorbidities.
Well, and that just goes to show that the more educated we are, and the more educated, the drivers become and their families become, the better the situation, because there really is a plan that they can put into place that will allow them to better their health situation and to control their diet and some of the physical issues that they're struggling with while they're on the road. So when we come back, we'll catch up with that and a couple other things about health. So Jon, hang in there, and to our listeners, stay tuned.
5 tips for becoming a great truck driver. Being a truck driver is a rewarding career, but being a great truck driver is even more rewarding. Truck driving is not an easy job. It requires hard work and dedication. Truck drivers take pride in the hard work they do. After all, without truck drivers, our grocery and convenience stores would be empty. Whether you're a rookie or a veteran driver, there's always room to improve your skills as a truck driver. Here are 5 tips for becoming a great truck driver. Safety. Truck driving is considered one of the most dangerous jobs in America, so safety must be a driver's #1 priority. Truck drivers are responsible for keeping their freight, themselves, and other motorists on the road safe. Other drivers on the road may not know the difficulties and challenges truckers face on the road, so truck drivers may have to go the extra mile to ensure everyone's safe on the road. Prioritize health. A truck driver will prioritize their health. After all, taking care of your health can help you have a long-lasting, successful career as a truck driver. It's no secret that truck driving is considered an unhealthy profession. Drivers lack healthy food options, exercise, and a good sleep schedule. Stay compliant with federal regulations. Trucking rules and regulations are monitored by 2 organizations, one at a state level and one at a federal level. The trucking rules and regulations are established at a federal level. Staying compliant with federal regulations is essential for keeping yourself and others safe on the road. It can also save you from getting fines, which in return saves you time and money. Maintain a clean driving record. The best way to avoid traffic violations is to be aware of all the moving and non-moving violations you could get. Certain violations can affect the eligibility to operate a commercial motor vehicle. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration provides a list of violations. If you're issued a citation for FMCSA safety violations, your CDL could be in danger of suspension. Here are some things that can cause you to get a point on your driving record or possibly a suspended CDL. Speeding, following too close, overweight, traffic violation, reckless driving, driving without proper endorsements, logbook errors. Drivers must be aware that any type of violation could result in a loss of their CDL. Balance trucking and home life. The last tip for becoming a great truck driver is balancing truck and home life. Truck driving is hard and demanding work. Becoming a truck driver means spending many hours and days on the road. You'll sacrifice a lot for your trucking career. For many long-haul truck drivers, it's hard to separate life at work from life at home. Learning how to have a balance between home life and work life is essential if you want to have a long-lasting career in trucking.
Kathy DeCaro is nothing short of amazing. She not only drives the world's biggest truck as a heavy equipment operator in northern Alberta, Canada. She's an international motivational speaker and the author of Dream Big, an autobiography about overcoming a lifetime of trauma and abuse that led to dreams of success. Kathy inspires people the world over to change their lives and improve their self-worth. Her book will change your life. She's passionate about personal growth and believes anyone can change their circumstances and overcome their obstacles if they believe in themselves. Her life will amaze you and seriously inspire you. Be sure to order a copy of her book, Dream Big, on Amazon.com. I'm Shelley Johnson with Kathy Tuccaro. You can hear us Tuesdays on TNCRadio.live at 8 p.m. Eastern on Women Road Warriors. And don't miss Steve Summers' Overnight Drive right here on TNCRadio.live, weeknights midnight to 5 a.m. Eastern. Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Welcome back to Truckers Life Radio. We're talking about the issue of unhealthy drivers, and I'm here with Jon Slaughter. And Jon, I want to ask you, when we broke off from the last segment, we were talking about ways that our drivers could, help themselves. What I want to talk about now is how does being an unhealthy driver affect the driver's family? And I know this is true. We have both men and women who are driving. So I'm not targeting one sex or the other. I'm just saying, what is it? How does their health not only affect them, but in fact affect their wives, their children, and those that they are in close relationship with?
Well, I tell you, I'm glad you're hitting on that, because the thing that we find is when families get involved with a driver's health, so far as being a big promoter of improvement, we see a tremendous amount of improvement. Whenever you think about being in poor health, every 2 years, drivers have to go in and get an occupational examination from a certified medical examiner. And if you're proven to be unhealthy, you can lose your CDL, and or at best, you could turn around and get a temporary renewal. Usually it lasts about 6 months. And what they're looking to do is to see if you're going to start some kind of therapy towards correcting the matter. But the point being is that you are putting at risk your career. So when you think about the career, being the breadwinner of the family, it puts them in jeopardy. It makes them unsafe. And then when you just get into the general dynamics of being a husband or a wife and having loved ones at home that you're not able to see for 3 weeks at a time, not only does it cause you to have depression, but it affects your partner and it affects your children the same way. I don't get to see mommy very much, or I don't get to see daddy very much. They don't get to come to my events, my birthday parties I've missed, and all of the school activities that have been missed and so forth, while you're out there trying to earn an income for the family. So it causes that dynamic in the family to become oftentimes bitter with each other. And oftentimes it'll turn around and create havoc when it comes towards interrelationships. What we do know is a happy driver becomes a healthier driver. And when a driver is not suffering from depression and is not subsidizing that particular emotion with illegal substances or drinking too much or what have you, we find that they do take and participate more. They find new ways to be able to contribute towards that family. We often see, though, I'll be honest with you, we see oftentimes that pretty much whatever the driver's health is, that's what the family looks like. So oftentimes overweight drivers, we see overweight spouses.
Ken, I hate to bring this up, but, I've got sons and daughter-in-laws, and I've got grandkids, and I see the culture around us. And right now, the culture is, what can we eat that's quick and fast?
Yeah.
We've got a lot going on in our lives. So, what's plaguing the drivers and what's plaguing their families, because what they do, their family does, is really plaguing our culture, because everybody's got I don't want to say a fast food mentality, but the reality is it's what can we grab that we don't have to cook?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming I know I did, and Tom probably did, grew up in a time when it was a big thing to sit and eat a family meal. That doesn't seem to exist anymore. So back to our drivers, you said 35% of owner operators have no health insurance.
That's right.
How does that impact their willingness to do something about their health? Because obviously, a lot of people in our country today don't have health insurance, and so they don't do anything. They just don't know how to pay for it, can't pay for it, and seem to be in a tough spot. So how does that affect our drivers when 35% of owner operators don't have health insurance? That means their families don't either.
That's right. Well, and I could go so many places with that question, but let's just talk about directly a driver. Number one, you're paying more for medical costs. You're exposing yourself financially. You're also exposing yourself to never getting insurance again. When you get liver disease and you start getting into heart-related disease, you get to a point where you can't get insured because nobody's going to take you because you're at high risk. So the other side of that is when you take a look at you becoming uninsured, then you're also looking at it's harder for you to get coverage for your family. It's going to be more expensive. You definitely can get it, but it's going to be more expensive. And also, when you take a look at all the basic things that I take for granted, look, I had a stroke 2 years ago. Thank goodness I had healthcare coverage. Otherwise, it would have been a financial burden, a tremendous financial burden. I couldn't work for several months. So if I was driving a truck and I couldn't get it on the road, just like I do, unless they're running the miles, they're not earning the money. And I can't imagine how that would turn around and affected me had I not personally had healthcare insurance. We actually have a group within Healthy Trucking that assist drivers with getting onto the Affordable Care Act and getting universal coverage. I encourage drivers to call us. We do this free of charge and are able to assist them because we know they're driving and so forth. And so we actually even fill out the paperwork for you and get that put into place.
Jon, do you see the culture in the trucking industry changing in favor of developing healthier drivers? Are the truck stops really now beginning to focus on ways they can deal with that issue? I know being a chaplaincy organization to the trucking industry, we deal with the truck stops and the trucking companies, and some of them are asking questions now for the first time. How can we better our restaurants? How can we better the food that goes out the door to our drivers? Do you see that in what you're doing?
We've been working with truck stops for years, attempting to get them to raise better awareness to healthier choices. And it's just like anybody else. I go into a place and I'm hungry and I see a foot-long hot dog. I'll take 2 of them. I got a 4-hour run here and a big gulp, and I'll go get in my truck and feel good. I mean, it's common human nature. But what we're finding with truck stops, and really, to be straightforward, with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, I don't think there's enough awareness going out to these drivers. I don't think they're doing enough work for these drivers. You put something out there that's unhealthy versus something that's healthy, I'm probably going to lean more towards what I like to taste. I think it would be important for them to actually take a proactive role and protect all of us by keeping those drivers healthy and promoting more healthier choices. They're just not doing it. FMCSA needs to do a better job so far as drivers' health. They don't pay enough attention. They're a great advisory group, but they're not helping.
I think that too, the biggest heart cry out here is we can't find help. And I know the truck stops are struggling to find help, and many of the local restaurants and, just about every business you look at is struggling to find people that they can employ that have a certain degree of knowledge about the work or the industry they're in. And I'm sure for truck stops, that's part of their problem too. They can't get the employees they need. And so much of the trucking industry is focused not on so much the health of the drivers as it is on how do we survive.
Yeah, we see that. And let me tell you, it's a tough time. We've got businesses that are trying to survive and to be able to provide the basic needs to fleets and so forth for fuel and drivers to keep them fed. I get that. I completely get that. It is something, though, when you take a look at the important work that these drivers do around the country. I mean, honestly, if I didn't get my Amazon order, I'm going to stomp my feet, right?
Yeah.
Thank goodness that there's a driver out there doing it who's healthy and who is putting himself on the line or herself on the line at times on their health to provide that for me. But a better awareness needs to come out of these truck stops, and better awareness needs to come out of the federal government when it comes to assisting these drivers.
Mm. Yeah, there's only so much that we can do. And I know your organization, our organization, is trying its best to bring awareness to the needs of our professional drivers and their families and trying to help them and treat them. So, Jon, as we go into the final segment, we're going to talk about ways that our people can do that. But we need to go to break, sadly. And so we'll go to break and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Truckers Life Radio on tncradio.live.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. The great Alfred Adler used to talk about children quite a bit, and he said, children are very astute observers, but they draw erroneous conclusions about what they've observed. Therefore, they need adults to help them translate what they're witnessing and to put a good perspective on it. Case in point, years ago, a 4-year-old boy watched his father in the backyard swimming pool going headfirst down the slide into the water. When he hit the water, his hairpiece came off. Nothing was said. It was not a big deal. But several weeks later, at the boy's birthday party, everyone was going down that same slide into the pool. The boy's father challenged him to go head first and even pushed him. And all the way down the slide, he screamed, "No!" Great tears. When he finally hit the water, he was hysterically crying. The father said, "What's wrong? What's wrong? You've been down the slide 1,000,000 times." And he said, "I don't want my hair to come off." Excellent observation, quite astute, but an erroneous conclusion. So what do we do with that? We ask children what they're thinking. We find out how they're processing things. We give them the opportunity to feel safe to tell us what's on their mind. And wherever it's necessary, we correct their thinking. We give them more accurate information, and information that helps them to feel safer and better about themselves. And then hopefully they'll be able to keep their head and keep their hair.
Be sure to listen to Building Strong Minds with Dr. Chris, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, right here on tncradio.live. tncradio.live, your commercial driver navigation station.
Welcome back to Truckers Life Radio, and we're spending some time, and this is our last segment, sadly, but we're spending some time with Jon Slaughter, who is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Healthy Trucking of America. Jon, we left off talking about there hasn't been enough attention brought to the health issue of our drivers. How do you see your organization and its efforts helping to resolve that problem?
I'm glad you asked that, because there's a considerable number of efforts that we do. We've been around for 25 years, since 1997. And we have been working with the CDC and other programs within the federal government, showing them that this driver population is unhealthy. And what we're finding is, when it comes to federal programs, is those who scream the loudest usually get what they want. And so we're constantly petitioning the CDC and others to create studies and that kind of thing that allow funding for these drivers to be able to receive some free services. In addition to that, we constantly report and work with different congressional members to be able to support certain initiatives that they're pushing, just like when it came to this infrastructure bill. We were consulted on some of that. They were looking at putting some funds towards drivers' health. We're hoping that that'll get through and be able to, again, kind of relieve the pressure.
Jon, tell our drivers and our listeners who are not all drivers, share with them, what is Thrive 365? When I was at the Mid-America Truck Show, we were next door to you guys and some others. And, we talked a little bit about, with a team of guys there, Thrive 365. What is that?
So Thrive 365 is a really easy way to be able to calculate and determine the combination of foods that are healthy for you. And their goal is to, by using that program, you're able to reduce your symptoms to prediabetes, because it's all about the A1C level at the end of the day. And this program focuses on nutrition. The reason that we supported it, we don't make anything off of these recommendations, product recommendations. It's more of a good housekeeping seal of approval. But I take a look at the programs and decide whether or not that we're willing to endorse them. And this was one that we happily did. It doesn't require a lot of work on behalf of a driver, other download an app and then go in and start using their program. It links into our health coaching network. So in the event you've got a question or some numbers come in, then you have an easy way to access us.
So, Jon, how you talked a little bit about how that ties into your organization. It's kind of a partnering thing that you're doing. And have you seen it be successful for the people who have used it?
We've seen a lot of downloads. It kind of just came out about a year ago. We got a hold of it several months ago, just before the Mid-America Truck Show. We've had some very good results of people downloading the free trial. And again, I encourage you to go out there and get the free trial. You can go to our website, healthytruck.org, and get a link and just give it a try for yourself. But we're finding right now, we're just now doing a study on it within Healthy Trucking to see what the results are.
Good. So you're doing a study on it. That keys me into my next question, or my next, what I'd like you to do. Jon, there are multiple resources that you guys have that you can bring to the table for our drivers. I want you to speak to our drivers out on the road and speak directly to them and share with them what are some of the things they can do. First of all, how can they connect with you to find out more information and maybe find some help and or find out about resources? And in light of that, what resources are available to them that they can contact you for?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to pitch Healthy Trucking. Number one, you can reach us by going to healthytruck.org on the internet. You can call 800-800-1198 and talk to an agent or a health coach. You just simply say health coach when you call, and it'll put you in the queue and you get to speak to one. They're versed on all the programs that we have. One of the key things is that one of our focuses is on prediabetes and people getting symptomatic to it, which means that we're concerned about drivers who are obese. And so with that, we have the National Diabetes Prevention Program that is provided by the CDC that we enroll drivers into. It's a free program, doesn't cost anything. And you are assigned health coaches and so forth to assist you with that. The next is we have several clinical trials that we're running right now on fatty liver disease and lowering cholesterol, as well as turning around and being concerned about obesity as well. You can get into any one of those programs free of charge. You can just go out to our website and you'll be able to see a link to clinical trials for enrollment. Just fill it out. One of our agents will call you and see if you qualify. And if so, you're off and running to the races and you got some free health care for something that you may be symptomatic to. One of the ways that we also assist is by lowering prescription drug costs. We've seen, we have a prescription drug card, Healthy Truck RX. If you go to healthytruckrx.com, I encourage you to download that. We do see a great reduction in cost on prescriptions that you might receive. And by the way, a certain percentage of that goes to our 501c3. When I say a certain percentage, it's what we make off of it goes to our 501c3 not-for-profit called Healthy Transportation Foundation. And that foundation seeks grants that go out and subsidize different programs that we're able to bring drivers into. So go out there and use it. As you use it, know that you're helping a fellow driver, if not yourself. The other thing that we're putting in this year that you and I were talking about is we're seeing a lot of clinical depression, some counseling services needed for drivers. And so we're looking to get involved with different programs like yours where we can refer drivers over so that they can receive some much needed assistance that they have. We're seeing a tremendous increase in that. And with that, we're pretty concerned. If you are looking to get in some insurance through the Affordable Care Act, call one of our specialists. They're trained to do it. They'll assist you in every single way, and they'll do all the paperwork for you. All you got to do is give us some information. All of this is free of charge. Doesn't cost a dime.
John, give us a contact point, email address, phone number. How do they reach you?
So you can reach us. You can reach me at John S. That's JONS at healthytruck.org. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I will get you involved with someone immediately. I think that would be the best way to do it. And then at that point, we'll turn around and get you that needed assistance.
Well, John, it sounds like that you and I need to have a talk about some partnership here. We have chaplains and counselors who are dealing with various issues of addiction and human trafficking and depression and anxiety. And so we're all doing some part or something to help our drivers because there are concerns not only for their health, but their health is key to everything. But so much is going on in their lives right now. The pace of life has rushed forward for us. And so our drivers are experiencing the same thing. They've got family at home that is sick, or they've got parents that they're trying to care for while they're on the road. And so there's multiple ways that we can partner together. So, John, let's talk about that in our off time here, that ways that we might be able to partner together. But in the meantime, I want to encourage our listeners, don't take your health for granted. Don't just think I'm okay, because the probability is you're not. And you should be out there doing whatever you can to better your health situation, not only for yourself, but for your families. Be aware that you are an important aspect of ministering and caring for your family. And we pray for you. As a ministry, as an organization, we're praying for you, each one of you who are on the road. And we want you to know that, but we want you to be out there caring for yourself so that you can better care for your family. So, John, we thank you for being part of our program today.
Thank you.
I wish we had longer to talk about this kind of stuff because it is so important that we bring awareness to these kind of issues. But John, we'll do it again. Thanks for being with us. And to our listeners, we were happy you were able to join us.
I hope you enjoyed the show. Let us hear from you. Send email to truckerslife@tncradio.live. Stay tuned.